wisdom, which is what I'm attempting to point to and describe and invite people to, is pretty useless without knowledge. So in Earth School, living out this self-realization is a privilege. It's a journey.
Well, today is an exceptionally important day for me. I'm incredibly excited to have the trailblazer, the icon, Byron Katie on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
I say all of that because, one, your work has touched my life in so many ways, and I'm sure so many people listening, and for the people who haven't been introduced to it yet, it's going to change their life. And also just the journey you've walked, which has been profound too. So thanks for continuing to do the work because it's been so impactful in my life. Maybe we should start just to give people some background is really like, where was the work born?
Well, the work is inquiry. It's a way to identify and question the thoughts that cause all the suffering in our life. Basically, it's that simple. And it's an experience that I pass on from personal experience. And it is one morning as I lay sleeping on the floor because my self-hatred was running so deep, I didn't believe I deserved a bed to sleep in. And so sleeping on the floor, even though there's a bed in the room. So that's a very impoverished mind.
Yeah.
So it was depression, agoraphobia. But as I lay sleeping on the floor, actually a cockroach crawled over my ankle or my foot. And I woke up, and before ego could fill in that space, I saw, prior to identification, how my world, how my entire universe was made and formed. And so when I saw that so clearly, the first sound out of my mouth was laughter. It was like, why didn't someone tell me? It was so simple. And I've been offering what I saw there all these years later. And rather than tell people what I saw, the power is to flip that and give people a way to discover for themselves what was shown to me on the floor. No one has more wisdom than anyone else. We all have that equally. And no one is more enlightened than anyone else. It's just this ego's trip that creates the illusion of false identity, what we see as I, me, and how to wake up to that. And so it is, it's how to identify the suffering that we experience in our life and how to end it. And it's personal work. We don't need a teacher for it. We have all the lessons, whatever age we are, we have all the lessons needed to show us. Anyone that's ever had a problem, I invite you to the work.
Yeah, and to give some people a context of what the work is, it's 4 questions.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to walk us through it?
Yeah, I like to refer to it as 4 questions and then finding turnarounds for what we're questioning. For example, if I have the thought, like I'm walking down the street and someone looks at me and they give me the look, and I have the thought, she doesn't care about me, or he or them, and whatever it happens to be. Let's say she doesn't care about me. Stranger on the street, the ego just takes such advantage of that. And how do I react? What happens? That's the next question. The first one is it true? And then just to drop in a little more deeply, can I really know that it's true? In that situation, walking down the street, when I looked at her, it was clear to me she doesn't like me. So is it true she doesn't like me? Can I really be sure it's true? She doesn't like me. And this drops us into a meditative state. So I'm meditating in that time and place. When I was walking down the street, I see it in my mind's eye. I see her in my mind's eye. No, I've never seen her before. Stranger. And I look at her, look at me. And I'm sure she doesn't care about me. Now, the answer to those first two questions is either yes or no. So we're dealing with our own authenticity here. Not to win, not to lose. We're looking for what, like the whole world could say, she cares about you. She cares about you.
Right.
Now I'm sitting in something different. That's the world's opinion. I've got to know. So I give me that time and I drop in that deeply and I look at her face as I recall it in my mind's eye. Can I really know that it's true? She doesn't care about me. So it's a yes or no. It's one syllable either way. And it could take me an hour sitting in just one of those questions. Or maybe I see it so clearly and I laugh at myself. Or maybe, yes, it's true. Now that I look at it, my mind hasn't changed and I've really explored it, being present in that now. The third question, there are only four, is to witness in my mind's eye. The question is, how do I react? What happened when I believe that thought? She doesn't care about me. So now I'm there in that situation, the whole thing, I anchor there because all the answers to my questions show up there. So to be there now, I'm seeing that look on her face. She's looking directly at me. How do I react when I think the thought she doesn't care about me? And in that, when I get still, meditating in that question, in my mind's eye, being there now, I'm able to see any images of past and future that showed up in my mind's eye as I was looking for her. We're not aware of them at the time, maybe, but if we get really still, they're there and we can find them. And some from our childhood, some from fear of the future, what we fear in the future, but just sitting and how do I react? What happened? I get in touch with the emotions that I experienced as I was thinking the thought. And I notice maybe that I lost some self-esteem, that I felt small, or maybe I tried to show up with a mask of, I've really got my stuff together. Just a stranger on the street, all this is going on in us. And so as I explore that, when I feel empty, experiencing, identifying how I reacted when I believed the thought in that situation, I move to the last question, and that is, in that situation, I'm going to witness without the thought, she doesn't care about me. Without that in the space, who or what am I? Who am I without the thought? This whole thing is exploration. It shows us the cause of our suffering, our low self-esteem, our better than, our inequalities, our pain, basically, our emotions, how quickly they can shift. There's a cause for it. So we're really looking at the cause of our suffering with each of these questions, and the ego is just so happy to offer them up.
It's so fascinating to explore how much that deconstructs, like you were saying, that moment where you see the cockroach before it's a cockroach, before all the models come in of how to identify those circumstances, whether you should be afraid, all that.
Yeah. I saw on the floor in that when I woke up prior to ego, there was no identification, and there was a kind of sound to it, like silence. There was an infinite about it that wasn't a time or place. There was a not I. In that, I saw light, and it was just witnessing. And then I saw a window And the light was actually shining through the window. And that brought the laughter. It's like, oh my gosh, prior to I am in the best of experiences, best way. This is not a scary thing, the ego is frightened of it, but there was nothing, but there was no I experiencing nothing. And yet I am. It was home. And so I saw the light and I saw the window, and the laughter came from, oh my holy moly, I see how it was born. There was light, but it wasn't light until it was met with word. In the beginning, word, light. And then it wasn't a window until I, let's say, saw it as window.
Yeah.
And there's I am. And then there was a room and walls and a bed and a floor. And I am still not identifying. I am witness. It's just witnessing, even though what I said could sound like contradiction. It was just, and nothing has changed, Mark. And all these apparent years, nothing has changed. Everything is new. It is such a gift to wake up to the end of suffering. The world is beautiful, other than what we're thinking and believing about the world. Now, that could use a little work, like she doesn't care about me, this woman walking down the street. So then I turned around, she doesn't care about me. She does care about me. There's an opposite. So I'm not going to believe it. I'm just going to try it on.
Mm-hmm.
And she does care about me. So when I get really still in that, maybe I begin to notice she really wasn't even looking at me. She does care about me. I mean, just to meditate in that and look at her the way I saw her then, without putting an identity to it, like she doesn't care about me. That me, all about me. Don't walk down the street where I am, because, ego, you are this and you are that and she is that and he is that and they are that and I'm a victim. I'm just so misunderstood. That's cause and effect. We are beautiful until the ego begins to just name and describe situation. For example, situation, like I am at home and I am the woman sitting here with my friend Mark. It'll do. And no one asks, do I believe it? This is Earth School. And there's a language of authenticity here. I call it first generation thinking. And it's so lovely. It's so lovely. And it allows us to live in the absence of suffering. And when we find ourselves experiencing ourselves as confused, frightened, angry, we can always look back and fill in, what I call the judge your neighbor worksheet.
Yeah.
Answer those 6 questions on that worksheet and then sit in the inquiry as I just more or less described it as we were talking.
I was listening to your audio workshop that's on the work with relationships. And I'd listened to it years ago and I revisited it this week just to prepare for our conversation. And I was struck by how many of the circumstances had actually sat in my conscious, like my unconscious, for all these years of just like this recognition. But I hadn't actually gone back to the work in probably 3 or 4 months. And I find whenever I do, I get called out, and which is great. But, I was sitting thinking about one of the conversations that's in that is I want them to be more open to me, which I think is such a relational wish that we often have. I found that one I used to suffer with was they don't choose me.
Yeah.
But I realized like how much of that suffering was just born from this perspective, even though when I looked at the evidence, like you said, is it true? Well, no, I'm in a relationship with them, so that can't be, can I absolutely know it's true? No. How does it make me feel? I mean, it's the source of most of my childhood pain. Like when I look back, it was similar. So it's fascinating to see, like, really what you're inviting to us is to take the red pill, to sort of look at the matrix of all the mental models and beliefs that we've formed, which I'm hard pressed to find any that are actually true. When I do the work, I'm like, it's all ways that I either want to feel better about myself or worse about myself. And it's interesting to me that we have such a hard time letting them go.
If, there's a particular inquiry we're sitting in, is it true? Our answer can be yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's equal, if it's authentic for us, it's equally as powerful as no. It's only the authenticity we're looking for, beyond guessing, even though we can, like, I saw the water. I'm looking at a lake, and then a week later, I'm in the city, and I saw the water. I saw the lake in my mind's eye. I was there. Is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? I was there. And how do I react when I believe the thought? Well, I see why I believe the thought. I see the water, and I see the boats on the water, and I see an image of me standing there on the bank of that lake, and I see, and I can actually begin to smell it. I can, it's all there, and I'm in the city on a subway, but that doesn't stop the ego, and then who would I be without the thought? I mean, who wants to leave a lake for the subway? Let's just be at home everywhere. It's like, I saw it. Who would I be without the story? And then all of a sudden, people that are standing next to me become vivid, and I can see, and there's laughter, and there's silence, and there's people wearing this, and people reading news. I mean, this world is incredible. And I just don't want to miss it. I refer to this as Earth School, and I'm in. The enlightened mind is let's just refer to it, to the enlightened mind. There's room for everything without exception. And once you begin to realize through inquiry the true nature of everyone and everything without exception, home, home, home. And that is, it's a home being the gift. We call it earth. And the gift of, for me, like, there are terms for it, heaven or paradise or beauty, perfection. Everything makes sense and begins to add up. And all of that is inside of us. And these questions unlock it. When we're meditating, what the ego offers up, we kind of just clear the decks and get still beyond that. And then we get still and we drop in. And then some other, like, oh, I'm late for dinner, and just move that away and get still. Well, what I invite people do is whatever would interrupt that kind of stillness and depth that we're seeking is to invite what appears on its own and move it from mind to paper. If it's at all disturbing, distressing, sadness, invokes sadness, or anything less than our heart's desire, which is I am here now, it appears, sitting with my friend Mark Groves.
Why do you think we have such a hard time stepping into that liberation or accepting it?
Well, I don't know if I could step into it or accept it if it were not authentic. The answer to these, the ego loves answering the questions. If you can just anchor on a specific situation and isolate the thoughts you were thinking. And that's why that worksheet is so powerful. Those 6 questions there are exactly the cause of our suffering. And so now that they're from they are moved from our head to paper, where they're stable and the ego can't shift them away. They're just, there they are in writing. We can question them and focus on them using those 4 questions and turnarounds.
So one of my missions in the late part of 2022 is to kick sugar. So if you're like me and that's in your goals, but you still got a little bit of an affinity for some sweet goodness, you got a sweet tooth, and you want to satisfy it still without, giving into your sugar addiction, then what I use is Organifi Gold. And it's perfect timing because it's also good for sleep. So I have it kind of as a dessert, and it's a superfood tea. It's got 9 powerful, 100% organic whole food ingredients, and it is delicioso. It has turmeric, reishi, turkey tail mushrooms, ginger, all of those used for thousands of years for their medicinal benefits. And they're all designed to support rest, relaxation, recovery, repair, while being sort of jammed in a delicious beverage that satisfies my need for some sweetness. So I drink it right before bed. You just mix it with some hot water or some dairy, non-dairy milk, whatever is your jam. And it's a dessert-like drink that's guilt-free. I mean, does it get better? Yes, it does. Wait, there's more. It's gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, vegan, non-GMO, all the things that people want. And it's glyphosate-free, which, we all want that. There's no doubt about that. So if you love golden milk and you want to add a delicious and nutritious component to your bedtime routine, then you need to try Organifi Gold. Go to Organifi.com/createthelove. That is Organifi.com/createthelove. And you save 20% off not just the Organifi Gold, but also all of Organifi's products. It feels like we have like when I listen to that audio workshop, which I recommend everyone listen to, as well as your book, Loving What Is. What I found was the ego is brilliant at dodging, brilliant. I laugh at some of it because I love that you infuse so much humor, because people end up laughing at themselves so much, it sort of mirrors the moment where you just sort of laughed at the eternal, at the infinite. And I found like one belief that I've heard and certainly have felt in ways, and more recently, probably in the last couple of years, is the thought that the world is divided. Mm-hmm. And oh my gosh,
that's a big one these days.
Right, I hear that one all over the place. It's in comments everywhere, and I wondered if we could just break that down. I can answer from my perspective, but also maybe what I've witnessed, but take ownership for my own process.
So what do you have in mind when you have the thought we're divided? What comes to mind? Like in duality, it is division. Duality is more than one. So
right.
When I think of we're divided in the climate today, it's very popular, the term.
Yeah, it is. And I guess from a perspective that there is you and there is I, but if you deconstruct that, like you talk about, you end up feeling a sense of unison. You end up feeling a sense of unity. In this idea, I guess does it flow? Like when I begin to understand it, I think it politically, there's the experience of, mm-hmm. In the US, I'm Canadian, but we have a very similar structure. So it's like there's Democrats or liberals and conservatives. And so I'm curious, when you talk about that duality, how do we acknowledge or accept those circumstances and see how it lives within us?
The woman walking down the street and coming toward me, and I'm walking toward her, and I think the thought as we looked at it, she doesn't care about me. So through the questioning, like there was her, there was me. That's duality. Mm-hmm. And I had her defined. She is the woman that doesn't care about me. And I've questioned my thoughts the way that we all set in. So now, I've just ended duality. She is who I believe her to be. She can never be more or less, ever.
There's a sense of, there's two emotions that I get when I just accept that truth. And I remember you saying in the workshop that to one gentleman, till you're ready to see the world as 100% your circumstance, your experience as 100% your responsibility, that's the work still is required. And when I think about the emotion that I experience with what you're saying, there's both a sense of liberation, understanding that, and there's a sense of weightedness. But the weightedness is, it feels almost like a grief of acceptance that I've created this suffering.
It's not my fault I'm being thought. I'm not thoughting to me. I mean,
right. I see what you're saying.
I challenge anyone to just stop thinking, do it now, stop.
Right. Like the moment I even leave that construct or the idea, then that disappears again.
Yeah, the ego comes in and saying, oh, I've done it. I'm not thinking. Well, that's thinking. And so, I don't do war with the ego. I make love. It's like making love to the ego for me means to listen, let it speak. I can't stop it anyway. I can avoid it, but it's going to pop up again. I'm not going to win. So I see the ego as just a terrified child. It is mind. It is not physical body. It is not a thing. You can't take it out and touch it. You can't even take it out. It's a state of mind. So that's ego. Now, if ego had to have a home to exist, what would it be? Let's say hypothetically, I hope I can put this in words vividly enough, but if I'm ego, I'm mind, I'm not physical. So to live, what would I have to do or be, So let's say I am like 2 years old and my mother says, Byron Kathleen, and I'm just playing with my toys, and she says, Byron Kathleen. And at some point I look around, I think, and I see her. And whether it's a good experience or bad experience isn't the point. It's the moment I believe that is I, that was the moment I was born. Whether I'm 4 years old, 3 years old, 8 weeks old, 8 months old, it doesn't matter. And who was I prior to believing I am who my mother believes me to be? I am Byron Kathleen. Prior to that, for example, no identification.
Yeah.
So I am Byron Kathleen. And so that belongs on paper. That's a big one to start with, but with me, it all belongs on paper. This is earth school, and there's no greater joy than to just see life as immovably perfect, whatever the ego may, just to understand that. Like if I see my morning walks that I do, let's say I pass this gorgeous tree, and I think, oh, what a beautiful tree. There's an arrogance there. It's an I know what you are. So where's the mystery? It's like the trees just blend into everything else as we think she doesn't care about me. There's something wrong with him, her, them. But like with that tree, it's a tree. How many of us stop to question that? And is it true? Yes. Drop in more deeply. Are you sure? Who taught you that? Who told you that? What is the genesis of that? What? Yeah, we all agree on every language in the world. It's a tree. Now that's handy dandy. And don't you want to know? Don't you want to know? Because if it's a tree, And I believe it. Look what goes with that.
Yeah.
Death and reputation and comparison, this tree with that tree. And I look at that tree and I remember the trees behind it. But just to get still, is a tree, is it true? And then just to do my morning walk. And how do I react when I believe the thought? It's a tree. Now, it's not right or wrong. We'd all agree it's a tree. I'm not here to say, don't be at home here. That's what we call it here. A tree. No harm, no foul. There's something more deep. There's something deeper running. And it's the don't know, amazing world of, beyond make-believe, beyond the world of the ego. So it's a tree. How do I react when I believe the thought? Well, Mark, I can't believe it's a tree if I don't see the past. The ego has to offer up the past, and we're asleep to it. We don't know what's going on, but I see the tree of yesterday, and I see the tree, that very same tree I think that I saw yesterday, and I see trees when I was a little girl growing up, and I don't know all of that's going on in my head. But I cannot believe that that tree of the moment is a tree without all that history, that ego, just giving that one moment its power and pushing it all to it. So who would I be without the thought it's a tree? I just invite everyone to just sit in front of a tree and it's a tree, and just sit in the question, is it true? And notice how you react, what happens internally when you think the thoughts it's a tree. And who would you be without the thoughts sitting in the presence of what is beyond name, that presence? And to this practice is the end of division, and the world can afford to be divided and to fight and argue right and wrong. And I can't. And I can't because there's another way. To be divided is unnecessary to do what needs to be done in this world. That sounds like a contradiction, but wisdom, which is what I'm attempting to point to and describe and invite people to, is pretty useless without knowledge. So in Earth School, living out this self-realization is a privilege. It's a journey. And as it turns out, it seems a fearless journey. So living the authentic life with no downside is what we would all do if we could really understand there's no downside to wisdom lived as knowledge. And knowledge is, it's practical. Self-realization until it's lived has no power. So knowledge. You are who I believe you to be. You can never be more or less in my world than that. So if I feel separate from you, I look to myself. And these 4 questions are how I look to myself, because all the answers are inside. And I don't have to know what they are. They appear if I'm authentically inviting the questions to be answered. And in that silent, meditative experience I refer to as the work, inquiry.
Sitting in that space where a tree is not a tree, or the possibility.
Yeah, the tree isn't a tree. It's just equal to the tree as a tree. So it's a depth we're dropping into.
Yeah.
This don't know depth, where we end up just in the presence of something marvelous.
Yeah, there's a infinite experience to it, because you then start to look at Like if you can sit within that, then all of a sudden you can feel into how everything in your life that has been given a label, every experience that's been given, every trauma, all of those, and not to dismiss those experiences, but to say, like when we label them in those ways, how they keep showing up in our
Yes,
lives. And
that's brilliant. That's it. And yes, not to dismiss, but to open to.
like this idea of, isn't it all perfect? And well, how can it not be? Because it was, in some sense.
And there's, people, let's say there's someone out there fighting a cause that is the opposite that we believe in. Let's say the opposite of what I believe in. The most powerful thing I can do is listen and to recognize their passion. There's nothing unfamiliar there. When I look to myself and I see the pain of war, and which is a simple word for winning and losing.
One of the most powerful sentences I remember learning early in your work, when I thought about it from a relational perspective, which, oh my gosh, when you start to do the work on your thoughts on your partner or your relationship, all of a sudden you're like, mirror, mirror, mirror. One of the most powerful lines that I always loved was, you can't have war with one person. As soon as someone goes into that receptive, open, curious mode, you talked about defensiveness.
Defense is the first act of war.
Yeah.
Not in other people, but in myself. Other people can afford to defend. And I understand that, and they could be right in what they defend. But defense inside of me, it's a way of shutting out something in the world, which would be a lack of understanding on my part. Let's say if someone walks up to me and says, you are this and you are that, and you are crazy and you are mean and you don't understand me and all of that. Let's say one of my children would say, throw something at me like that. I get still. I listen. And I can find where they're right. And that doesn't make me guilty. That makes me aware. Until I'm aware, how can the way I meet the world change? And my state of mind?
What a gift.
This is open-mindedness. So someone that says, oh, you're wonderful, Byron Katie, I need to look to myself. Oh, no, I'm not. No, I need to look to myself. If someone says, you're a terrible friend, Byron Katie, then I need to look to myself rather than attack. So you see, defense is the first act of war. Like, how can you say I'm terrible? You were my friend, and da, 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 da. No, who started the war? That was me. They spoke their truth. That's how they see me, and that will grow me if my mind is open to it. And maybe it's just not so what they're saying, but I'm awake now to the way they see me.
And that's liberating too.
And that's understanding. So I don't lose connection one way or the other. So the world can afford division, but basically division is not possible by nature, no matter what the ego would think, say, feel, or do. There's something under it. And it's easy, Mark, to identify where we're off when we think, say, feel, or do something that we feel a sense of guilt about. There it is. That's it. That's it. Those are situations that belong on a judge your neighbor worksheet.
Can you walk us through the judge your neighbor worksheet? So we have the 4 questions. Is it true? Can you know it's true? How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? And who would you be without it? And then we would move to the judge your neighbor worksheet.
So let's say I'm walking down the street, never saw her before, never see her again, but But why was I so uncomfortable in the presence of another human being just walking down the street with a look on her face? Haven't we all walked down the street and so caught up in our mind that we don't even see the people we're passing? It's like, but I'm her whole world in that moment. So let's say, and it wouldn't be the first time I had that thought or something. Yeah. So it goes across the board. Okay, so for the Judge and Neighbor worksheet, 6 questions on it, and they encompass the ego mind. They encompass mine. It's circular from the time we wake up to the time we pass out at night. So first question is, who or what bothers you? Well, it was the woman walking down the street. So what was the emotion I felt? What was the emotion? So you take some time, you get in touch with the emotion. And so to do this worksheet, just be there now in that situation, anchored there, because everything's going to come out of that. Maybe this is an emotion, but insecure, hurt. So I am, and I fill in the emotion, hurt, because, and then I fill in, why was I? She doesn't care about me. Okay, so now I have number 1 filled in. Number 2, in that situation, what did I want? Well, I wanted nothing. The ego would say, no, get still. To fill this worksheet in, be there now. People want to be here now. Well, be there now, because that's where you are here now when you're worried about it. So what did I want? So I have to get really still. What did I want? I wanted her to like me. What did I want? Anything else? And I just meditate in that experience on the street. Anything else I wanted? What did I want? What did I want? What did I want from her? I wanted her to like me. And maybe there is another one. Maybe there are 2 or 3. I'm just going to fill it in. Okay, the next one is to get what I want from her. What advice would I offer her? She should, she shouldn't. Okay, so she should say hello to me. She shouldn't look at me that way. You see, I'm being there now. Anything else running under advice? She should smile and say, good afternoon to me. Okay, so then when I feel empty, I'm moving to number 3. And number 2 is what did I want? And we just did number 3. Now, number 4 is, as I recall, that's correct. So number 4 is, what do I need to be happy in that situation? What do I need from her? What would it take for her to say or do something that would make me happy? I need her to smile at me. I need her to acknowledge me. I'm getting really silent now to see, am I empty? Is there anything else there? What would make me happy? What could she? Okay, and then the 5th one, we're almost done filling in the worksheet now. So what were my thoughts about that person? Okay, so she is cold, uncaring, thinks she's superior, cruel. Okay, so some of us, when we fill in this worksheet, we're so afraid of what we're thinking. We feel too guilty about what we're thinking to even fill in a worksheet. It's like, this out of me. No, that's wrong. That is. I just noticed the ego will talk you out of this worksheet, but we are literally identifying the cause of our suffering and moving it from mind to paper. Because if I experience it, then it's just going to go on and on and on. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then the last one. What is it that I don't ever want to experience in that situation again? Okay, so I never want to feel this way again. On the street, what is it I never want to experience again? I think that's it. So that was stillness. I felt empty. I think that covered it. Okay, and I can look back over my worksheet and maybe I'm a little more in touch with it, see if I left anything out. This is like invitation for the ego to speak. Now, I see the ego as a terrified child. It doesn't exist. It's mind. It can never be physical. When you think of chocolate cake, you can't take it out of your head and touch it and eat it.
That'd be great, though.
Well, what happens is when we think chocolate cake, for example, we begin to think, oh, I think I'll make a cake this evening and have chocolate cake. Well, I'll have chocolate. So this is how the world continues. The ego just offering it. And I feel I'm hurt because she doesn't care about me. Okay, so now I'm going to be there now in that experience and get in touch with the hurt. Just be there now, walking down the street. She doesn't care about me. Is it true? And then I do that as thoroughly as you and I said in. And then when we get to the number 2 on the worksheet, I want her to smile and say hello to me. Okay, so is it true? And it gets really weird. I thought that's what I wanted. Is it true when I sit in it? I want her to smile and say, good afternoon. Is it true? And notice how I react when I believe the thought. How many people do that? I expect that from. And notice how I react when I'm expecting that of someone I've never met before that maybe I'm noticing by now wasn't even aware that I was on the street in that passing. She was so preoccupied. And who would I be walking down the street without the thought? She doesn't care about me. That I want her to smile and say, good afternoon. Who would I be without that thought? And so I put myself in there, and who am I without it? Not expecting that. And then what shows up in that stillness. And then I turn it around to an opposite. I don't want her to smile and say, good afternoon to me. Wow. I might feel less secure if she had than if she hadn't. I'm just noodling this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want her to. Well, I'm going to ponder that. And then I don't want her to say good morning, good afternoon to me. Yeah, she was in her own world, her own process. I don't know that she even saw me. I don't want her to change her world. And the self-centeredness of, for me to be okay, I need her to break her world. People that someone I've never met before. You see how crazy it's and how selfish, how egocentric. It's like the world really does have to revolve around me. And I'm just so bitter about people. And now I understand why.
The expectations I have of them.
Impossible expectations.
That they can't possibly know. I'm laughing because there's a woman I see probably 2 to 4 times a week. And she often has in my mind kind of a grumpy demeanor. And I'm laughing just as you deconstruct it all, because I think, like, why would anyone even want to smile at someone when there's an unconscious contract to get the smile? Like, she's probably in the 7th dimension going, this guy's trying to get me to smile so he feels better about himself. He's meeting Byron Katie next week. Can't wait for him to deconstruct this.
Yeah, it's just the mind, what we're thinking creates our world. We begin to understand that when we enter this. So I want her to smile and say hello to me. And the opposite, I don't want her to smile. And we did that one. Okay, so the 4th question, who or what would I be walking down the street without the thought? I want her to smile and say hello to me. I sit in that and notice the freedom. Gosh, I'd be able to see her. Because I didn't see her. I was blind because I put that on her. I put all of that on her, so I wasn't present.
You become more of a conduit.
Yeah, so now I can see her. She's her as opposed to who I believed her to be. That is so beautiful. There's one less enemy in the world, just being born into my world, which frees up my consciousness. Because until it's done, they just travel with us. They just, a part of our identity and how we see the world. Okay, so now turn it around. She doesn't. I want her to say hello, good afternoon, and smile at me. Turned around. We looked at I don't want her to. Another turnaround is I want me to smile and say good afternoon to her. And that's a whole other thing. Not that we haven't done that before in our lives, but in this situation.
Yeah.
I'm so believing she doesn't care about me.
I think the turnarounds are so powerful. They're such a mirror, and when you do the work with people, it's so beautiful to listen to, because you say, like, can you find the part of you that's true? And inevitably we're like, yeah.
So now there's a thing I invite people to what I call living turnarounds. And so I began to be open to passing people on the streets anytime there's eye contact, maybe. And I don't know what they're thinking and believing, and I don't expect anything from them. Mm-hmm. And just say, good afternoon, and just keep on walking. And just this, I've walked down the street, Mark, with just maybe on the streets of New York when it's crowded, and just walked by and just grabbed a person's hand. Doesn't matter, male, female, old, young, just grabbed a person's hand. They never pull it away and just walk together silently. But that is a state of mind. They've never looked like they're appalled, because there's a consciousness there that we all are. It's just that it's authentic, and you can smell it, taste it. There's just an authentic human being. And that's the kind of freedom, in this world, we deserve that kind of freedom. This is Earth School. It's what we're here for. What do I need to be happy? I need her to care about me. So I question it when I turn it around. I don't need her to care about me. And I just try that on. Well, she's never met me. Why would she?
Mm-hmm.
But when I turn around to myself, I need me to care about her. And now that's a tall order, because we're talking about the whole human race. If I can do it with one, I can do it with. So the next time I experience a situation similar with that kind of feel or that kind of insecurity, then I live that turnaround. But what those living turnarounds do is they literally showed me how to live in this world. They were clear direction for how to live in this world out of a more enlightened mind. And I met a kind of fearlessness in me that continues to serve me without, just flawlessly at home in this world. And I look forward to more. This is Earth School. And as I said earlier, I'm in.
I'm in too. I appreciate that invitation. And
that woman on the worksheet, she's my teacher, and who I believed her to be wasn't her. So everyone has something for me. And if there's no stress to it, it's a good thing, because there is an unbroken connection, me with her. And I don't know where she is or he is or they are. But this is who they are in my world. I see the whole world is enlightened, and I'm the only unenlightened human being in this world. And I'm in. Everyone, these enemies that bring us, these apparent enemies that bring us sorrow, we think, on the other side of the enlightened mind, it's a love and a gratitude. That's our teacher. This is school.
What a way to walk around looking at people, to see them as your teacher.
It's a beautiful thing. Words like respect, connected. That's how we are as we. This inquiry it's a daily practice, and it's not that we can do it every day, but to just fill in the worksheet, it's mind-blowing. If we don't even question it, it's just mind-blowing to see what's there in us. It's like, oh my God, I miss it was me.
And it's always us, it comes back to that. Thank you once again for your time and your wisdom and sharing your experience and what you've learned and continue to learn.
Mark, it's just been so cool sitting with you. You're so easy to be with, you're so open to everything, and it's not new ground for you. So it's really beautiful.
Have a beautiful day. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, honey.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. If this episode resonated with you, one of the best ways to support the show is to go subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any more. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to it, or share the episode with your community on Instagram or whatever social place you like to hang out. This helps get it into more people's ears, and I'm so grateful for your support, always. Thanks again for tuning in. Much love.